Peace and blessings, beloved. Come here to be educated, empowered, enlightened, inspired, motivated, and challenged to be critical and independent thinkers. Let's get to it.
We here. Do you know what beef is? Do you know what beef is? Ask yourself. Do you know what beef is?
Если ты был бы мужчиной, ты мне отправил бы смс-ку. Куда ты сказал бы, я туда приехал бы, вот на конец света. Ты 40 человек здесь собрал, меня напугать решил, что ли? Я еще на тебя посмотрю. Мы еще посмотрим, мы еще подеремся, подожди.
Now war is upon us. I'm gonna rip his head off.
Peace and blessings, beloved. I pray all is well with you and yours. Welcome to What's Beef. Today we featuring none other than the notorious one, Mr. Conor McGregor, and his UFC 229 opponent, Khabib the Eagle Nurmagomedov. Now, due to the timeliness of this actual fight, this is going to end up being the first video that we go ahead and post. Now, I could have done other videos, but I wanted to really focus in on this one. I know it's a couple of weeks out from the actual fight, but it is what it is. You know, I don't rush anything that I do. You know, I don't work in haste. I work in patience, you know, prudence, and you know, I take my time, man. So anyway, before we get into the video, just want to share a little administrative. Now, ahead of this actual video, if you go on the blog site, the Lusu Media Group at WordPress.com, then you'll see that we have actually 3 setup videos that are gonna pretty much perfectly segue us into all of the content that I'll share here. And basically what those articles touch on is propaganda and programming, and how the powers that be, a phrase that I'll use often and I'll definitely go into detail on in another video, but how the powers that be have a specific agenda that they want to push onto us, and that they are pushing onto us, programming us and basically misleading and deceiving us into whatever our ideologies are or our lifestyles are. And so again, that's the perfect setup for all the content I'll share. Now back to this video. We'll discuss psychological warfare and how that even plays into programming and propaganda and you know, the agenda. So again, let's get to this. First of all, shout out Biggie Smalls, P Puff, Daddy Diddy for the intro. Had to do it, you know. What's beef? We got a few more. The Kanye. I don't know. I might do Kanye and the What's Beef. I might do a Kanye versus the liberals What's Beef. But really, it's Kanye versus Kanye. Straight up, he's fighting some demons, bro. Definitely fighting some demons. And for those of y'all who don't believe demons are real, poo-poo on you. If you rock with me long enough, I'll make you a believer. But having said that, let's get into this video. Now, for those of you who aren't fight fans, fret not. I don't really think it matters, because again, we're talking about psychological warfare, and what you'll learn is that we all employ it in one way or another at some point in our life. Some of us more regularly. And then going along with that psychological warfare, we have manipulation and body language. And of course, we all know how frequently we use body language, you know, consciously and unconsciously. And so what we'll focus in on here today, of course, is how those 3 things are used to defeat an opponent before you ever even engage them in battle. And so if you know anything about the laws of power, 48 laws of power, or the art of war, or Machiavelli, or Napoleon, or any military strategist, you'll understand the necessity of fighting the battle before the battle, beating your opponent before you ever have to lay hands on them. And so we dial back or circle back to this fight game called the UFC. What's important to understand is that although it is a showcase for actual martial artists who, you know, engage in combat, that first and foremost, UFC, by its own admission, is a promotion company. They are in the business of promoting fights. They're not merely a platform for starving fighters to be seen just for the glory of the sport. Nah, man. They trying to sell tickets. They trying to sell pay-per-views. They trying to sell product. That's why they have sponsors for every fight. So let's not get it twisted. And I say all that to say this. The psychological warfare is important, you know, as a combatant. But as you'll see further into the video, Brother McGregor, he ratchets up that psychological warfare to the point of pure minstrelsy. In other words, he's an entertainer, and he's very crafty at being an entertainer and at pushing the envelope, and let's say understanding where the boundary is and then saying, damn that boundary, I'ma do me, and walking over that boundary. So you'll see that this is not his first rodeo doing this. He's pretty much perfected it over the course of his career. I just think this time he might have bitten off more than he could chew. And of course, you know, hindsight is 2020. But even before the fight, I could pretty much tell that. That's why I wanted to do the video in the first place. So anyway, let's get to it. As you saw in that trailer, this fight was being promoted as more than a mere fight in the octagon. And that's because there's genuine bad blood between the two, right? And that's pretty much what we'll get to, you know, in this video. But I just wanted to illustrate how you have on one side of the equation the unhinged rage of Conor McGregor versus what I see as being a more deliberate, controlled Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now, one could posit that the antics of Conor displayed in that video may have gotten to the otherwise calm Khabib and awakened the monster. But you know, that's the beauty of fight promotion, man. You create the intrigue, get the fans' blood pumping with anticipation, and then you unleash the fighters. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not a huge fight aficionado, but I definitely do appreciate the skill, the heart, the will, the dedication, just the fortitude that it requires to be an elite athlete and combatant. So in that regard, double salute to both individuals. And I had no doubt that the fight was going to be entertaining, and it was. Khabib is about his business, man, and I think I really connect with this dude because I see similar traits in myself. You know, I don't like the rah-rah. I'm much more introverted, much more methodical, contemplative, matter of fact. You know, I don't do show. You dig? So I think I really click with the dude on that level. But having said that, I'll definitely be objective. You know, that's always the name of the game for me, because I want to enlighten. You know, I'm not trying to create no fanboys and nothing like that. We touch on the topic, hit that thing head on, and be about our business. So having said that, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. And we're going to start off by taking a brief look at how the beef between Conor and Khabib started. What you'll notice in these lead up videos, and for the YouTube video, I'm just going to play them back to back. I'll add commentary for the Patreon videos. And that brings up a noteworthy point. The goal is to create YouTube videos that definitely hit the point, hit the topic, but leaves out a lot of meat just for time reasons, and to allow people something to look forward to in the Patreon so that they can become subscribers. While my main goal is definitely to enlighten and, you know, encourage and challenge and provoke and evoke and enlighten and inspire, I definitely see an opportunity to monetize this so I can devote more time to it. And so that's what the Patreon page is for. I'll go even more in depth on that page with those videos. But again, fret not, we definitely still gonna get it in on YouTube. And so again, with these lead up videos, I'll just play them back to back, but this will paint a really vivid picture of everything that happened from the inception of their relationship, quote unquote inception, up until basically the weigh-in. And so I think you'll enjoy it. I think it'll give you a nice rounded out perspective on Conor versus Khabib.
Surprisingly, there was a time when Khabib and Conor were actually friendly towards each other. That may seem hard to believe given the current circumstances, but the two men competed in different divisions and there was really no reason for animosity. The friendliness is highlighted by a series of tweets in September of 2014, where Khabib asked for one of Conor's walkout t-shirts. Conor responded saying they should meet up during the fight week of UFC 178 and in fact train together. The two posed for a photo together backstage at UFC 178 and everything was amicable.
It's unclear if they ever got on the mats together, but Nurmagomedov did share this picture after McGregor knocked out Poirier just a minute and 46 seconds into their fight. Khabib continued to cheer his friend Conor on through 2015, but things took a noticeable turn for the worse once McGregor jumped to 155 pounds, the same weight class as Khabib. A seemingly lighthearted joke from McGregor's head coach, John Kavanagh, about Khabib's unwillingness to fight during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan set the Russian off and is still a source of tension to this day.
You know, so that's just because he said a lot of things about religion, he said a lot of things about Khabib, and it didn't sit very well with a lot of guys in Dagestan. Like, it did not say, he made some jokes on the internet, and he kept mentioning Khabib's name.
After dispatching Jose Aldo at UFC 194 in his crowning moment, McGregor immediately set his sights on the lightweight title. McGregor was set to face Rafael dos Anjos at UFC 196 for the 155-pound title, but due to injury fought Nate Diaz instead. As we all know, Diaz would shock the world by submitting McGregor, and Conor would put his desire for the lightweight title on hold as he sought revenge for his first UFC defeat. Whilst McGregor was distracted, Khabib had moved to 23-0 and put himself in contention for a shot at championship gold at UFC 205. Although Khabib wouldn't get a UFC title shot until much later, he actually signed a contract to fight then lightweight champion Eddie Alvarez at UFC 205 according to his Twitter. Instead, a certain Irishman snuck in, and this turn of events was the real catalyst for Khabib versus Conor. Somehow, MMA had just become legal in the state of New York, and UFC 205 marked the organization's big arrival to the historic venue that is Madison Square Garden. The company wanted the event to justify the change in legalization and needed the sport's biggest star to headline. Therefore, instead of Khabib fighting for the title as the rumours had suggested, McGregor would now face Eddie Alvarez and look to become the first simultaneous two-division champion in UFC history. Khabib would remain on UFC 205, however. He was relegated to the prelims when he had the main event dangled in front of him. Khabib felt disrespected by the fact that McGregor had essentially stolen his title shot despite never actually competing in the UFC's lightweight division.
No, maybe Conor make different decision. Maybe. This is number one bullshit. I think all Irish fans understand who deserve this. I think I have a lot of Irish fans too, you know, because I dominate with all my opponents, you know. Conor come to lightweight and he talk about, oh, I'm greatest, but you guys know, beginning of the year he tapped like chicken, end of the year he fight for the title.
You know, this is very interesting.
McGregor was making an enemy of seemingly every possible opponent at UFC 205. He had a couple of altercations with welterweight champion Tyron Woodley and went face-to-face with Khabib prior to the ceremonial weigh-ins. Although not the most intense moment we've seen between Khabib and Conor, it marked the first face-to-face conflict between the two and was the first time the possibility of Khabib versus Conor became a legitimate reality. The two were separated by security, with McGregor saying,
"Yeah, we will see,"
in response to Khabib's threat that he will smash Conor's face, which, as a note, sounds absolutely terrifying in Khabib's accent.
I will smash your face.
In retrospect, it's this moment that both men acknowledged they would cross paths sooner or later.
What happened backstage with you guys?
With who?
With you and Conor McGregor, there was an apparent backstage altercation. What exactly happened?
I saw video how he looked with Tyron Woodley morning, and after my weigh-in, when I go, he watched me. I say, what? Maybe he think I'm Tyron Woodley or Eddie Alvarez. I'm different, you know. I'm living in the street. Where I'm from, this is different. This is not about like camera here or not camera here. This is not about this. This is about different. For me, it's all my life. I have a lot of fight in the street. I know when I come to professional, I stop this because I can hurt somebody, but I have big experience. He watching like me, like, for me, like nothing happened. It's okay.
Thanks, guys.
But I think very soon. Very soon.
Backstage very
Thank
soon. Or at the new ring.
No backstage. I'm a professional athlete. I cannot do it. This is not about professional athlete. I'm father too. You know, I have to stay like professional, stay humble. But I hope no backstage. I wanna fight. I'm cage fighter. I wanna cage close, referee, and let's go. Real fight. And I deserve it.
Khabib turned the heat up on the brewing rivalry in his post-fight speech at UFC 205. The Eagle had just emphatically finished Michael Johnson after a truly dominant display. During the fight, Khabib was talking to Dana White, telling him he needs to fight McGregor.
Good. You gonna do good? Okay.
Be careful, we're gonna smash your boy. Yes, of course.
Afterwards, he got on the microphone and called for his shot against McGregor for all to hear.
I deserve title shot or no? Please tell these guys. I think you definitely deserve it. Let's go with your chicken.
Khabib asked how McGregor could lose to Nate Diaz and still fight for the lightweight title just 8 months later.
Your guy, beginning of the year, he tapped like chicken. End of the year, he fight for the title. Crazy.
Ultimately, McGregor had the last laugh that evening as he created UFC history and paraded the featherweight and lightweight titles around Madison Square Garden. Whilst McGregor was off in the boxing world making who knows how much millions of dollars to fight Floyd Mayweather, Khabib picked up another dominant win against an even more dangerous opponent in Edson Barboza at UFC 219. Khabib's post-fight speech at UFC 219 was a stark contrast to his call-out at UFC 205. Khabib essentially dismissed the idea of fighting McGregor and said he'd rather fight a true lightweight in Tony Ferguson instead.
I'm gonna say Tony Ferguson because he 10 win streak in lightweight. I'm 25 win streak. I'm undefeated all my career. Tony Ferguson.
Just 2 days later, Khabib and Conor had a rather unfriendly back and forth on Twitter. Conor said his future opponents need to beg him for his attention, and Khabib responded with this pretty hilarious photo of him riding a bear and chasing McGregor. McGregor did have a response for the photo saying he slaughters Khabib's pets and only wears them once, and Khabib came back by saying in the octagon the bear will eat you. Overall, this exchange was quite comical, but these public interactions definitely upped the ante of the fight for many people.
He announced that Nurmagomedov and Ferguson would fight for McGregor's lightweight title at UFC 223, which would be stripped from Conor once the often cancelled fight concluded. And as he feared, the match did fall apart again, with Ferguson tripping over a cable and blowing out his knee a week before the match. Khabib took the opportunity to call out McGregor, who claims he offered to set up a last-minute fight to save another UFC pay-per-view just before.
Were you told of your opponents, other names? Were they saying, okay, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about that guy? What was the process like?
I told first, hey, where is this Burger King? Take this Burger King here. I need this guy. Because he put tweet couple weeks ago, I'm stay ready. Now where's this guy? 60. Like Conor, he talk about, hey, I'm ready. Like I stay ready. Now they call him, oh no. Like I don't understand. When I'm ready, when I'm healthy, nobody talk. Nobody. All these guys, when I'm ready, never talk. When I have injured something like this before, they talk too much. Now I'm here. Where are you guys? Only Max Holloway show up. Other guys? Where are these guys? I don't understand.
And they didn't call, to the best of your knowledge, they never called Conor? Or do you think they might have sent out a feeler? What do you think?
No, they call. They call and they say cannot make weight. Okay. Something like this.
Wow.
I don't sure 100%, but I think they want he be just he look nice.
Right.
It's like
do you think he has
or show up his face because like he famous.
Fast forward a few months and we arrive at the infamous UFC 223, where an outright crazy 48 hours all but cemented the fact Khabib vs Conor was next. 4 days prior to UFC 223, a video emerged of Khabib confronting McGregor's close teammate Artem Lobov, who was also scheduled to fight at the event. Lobov had previously posted a video saying that Khabib regularly pulls out of fights and questioned whether Khabib is scared to fight.
Artem's fighting on this card too on Saturday. Artem Lobov. You know this guy?
Of course.
Shortly after the interview, Nurmagomedov and the members of his team cornered Artem Lobov at the Fighter Hotel.
When the two were face to face, Khabib and his teammates cornered a seemingly alone Lobov and intimidated him. Khabib even gave Lobov a slight slap on the back of the head.
Like this guy talk shit about me, I catch him. I ask him, hey, you wanna say something in front of my face? Say no. He said, I never talk about you bad. But he talked bad about me.
Given that Khabib was already scheduled to fight for McGregor's undisputed lightweight title, this incident didn't sit well with the Irishman, who decided to round up a group of friends and fly to New York. Up until this point, the rivalry between Khabib and Conor has been pretty typical of a UFC rivalry. It was perhaps what happened at the Barclays Center that made Khabib vs Conor the most extreme rivalry in UFC history. As the bus with all the red corner fighters on was leaving the Barclays Center, in arrived Conor McGregor out of the blue with his posse. McGregor, Lobov and co attacked the bus with Khabib and many other UFC fighters on. McGregor can be seen throwing a dolly through the bus window. The window shattered and cut other UFC fighters Michael Chiesa and Ray Borg in the process. McGregor's actions were described by Dana White as the most disgusting thing that had ever happened in the history of this company. Due to the incident, 3 fights were cancelled from UFC 223 and the rivalry between Khabib and Conor intensified to a whole new level. After all that had gone on at UFC 223, the week had culminated in Khabib Nurmagomedov defeating Al Iaquinta to capture the undisputed UFC lightweight title. McGregor was stripped of the title prior to the fight, and in contrast to UFC 205, McGregor would have to watch Khabib raise the UFC title he once held. This victory perfectly lined Khabib up for the all-important grudge match with Conor McGregor that had been building over recent years.
After the event, he confirmed he wanted to fight with McGregor.
Yes, why not? Hey, we have to finish this beef, chicken or something like this. He have to stop eat Burger Kings and you know, you wanna fight, come. I told you guys, we're gonna make him humble. I told you guys, I'm gonna change this game, you know. And now only one champion. No more fake champions, no more champion who never defend his title or something like this. Now UFC have champion, and this champion wanna defend his title. You wanna fight? Come here. Inside the cage, come. Outside the cage, let me know, without camera, without like all this media or like this, like man, you know, like he come when lot of security here, outside the bus, inside the bus, security here, don't let me go out. Like he tried to, hey, come out like this, like why you need this show up? Like let me know, and that's it. Anytime.
What he was talking as well was, I mean, look, he's fought once in 8 years. Do you know what I'm saying? Like he ain't fight too frequent for my liking. Like for me to commit to something like that, I need to be solid proof that people are going to show up, and he's a consistent pull-out merchant. He had a good performance tonight, fair play to him. We'll see where it goes, but I need to see active, I need to see activity, I need to see consistency, I need to see me. You know what I mean? If you want me to come and change your life, if you want me to come pick you, you better have some damn reasons for me to do that.
Throughout all of the previously mentioned interactions between Khabib and Conor, their respective mentalities have remained constant and are the sole reason the two have collided. From McGregor's time in the UFC, we have learnt he values loyalty in high regards. He has remained with the same team since he began MMA, and although he acted a little weird, this fierce loyalty led to McGregor defending his teammate Lobov during the bus incident, which all confirmed Khabib versus Conor. On top of this, McGregor has actively sought out the toughest challenges. He became the first simultaneous two-weight world champion in the UFC. He accepted a late notice fight against Nate Diaz, 2 divisions above where he had previously competed. And in the rematch, he insisted the fight take place at 172, so there wouldn't be any excuses regarding him being unable to beat a bigger opponent. He then, and probably most importantly, transitioned to a completely new sport in an attempt to beat one of the greatest boxers there ever lived, Floyd Mayweather. Khabib has now positioned himself to be the toughest available challenge for McGregor. Khabib has the most dominant record in the UFC, he has won McGregor's title, and is stylistically perhaps the most difficult matchup available. McGregor has been on record to say, if you want me to come pick you, you better have some reasons for me to do that, and Khabib has clearly ticked the necessary boxes. Khabib's mentality is vastly different from McGregor's, but it has indirectly caused this matchup. He isn't drawn to fame, but instead he wants to remain undefeated and go down as the greatest mixed martial artist when all is said and done. Khabib is of old school mentality where he wants the top guys to face each other and has taken offense at McGregor leading this modern era of MMA where he is able to put divisions on hold due to his star power.
And so, before we get into these press conference clips, about 4 or 5 of them, again, I just play them back to back for the YouTube video, but what's important to understand is that when you're employing psychological warfare, your goal is to disrupt the plan of your opponent. So you want to disengage them from their strategy by causing their emotions to take control of their judgment and their logic and their reasoning. And so basically what we're talking about is knocking somebody off their game by invoking emotionality into the picture. And what you'll see in many of the videos that we cover here on YouTube and Patreon for that matter, the idea of having self-control is a key focus and consideration. Emotions have their place, obviously. You know, we are to show emotion, you know, appropriately for whatever season of life we're in, whatever situation we find ourselves in. However, despite whatever level of emotion that we happen to emote, we are to always have control over it. That's the key. Emotions, fine. Allowing emotions to overtake you, not fine. And that's where people get into a heap of trouble, and they end up in situations where they've just blinked a couple of times and they have no idea how they got there. They aren't even aware in the foggiest of how their poor decisions based on emotionality have landed them in financial straits, relationship dysfunction, criminality, all the way down to imprisonment and even death. And of course we know ain't no coming back from that. So again, psychological warfare is real, man. And you know, it has its place in warfare. You know, I have my own idea about warfare. You know, my concept of warfare is not physical, it's spiritual. And so even the military strategist understands that warfare is not physical. Like the epitome of warfare is in the flesh, of course, is psychological. Can I get into my opponent's head to trip them up, to manipulate them, to deceive them, to give them a false sense of security and confidence? Can I control them to get them to do my bidding? And that's what you'll see in these clips.
Conor's done to him. You've seen him rattled at the press conference.
He's rattled. When he started talking about his dad, he's rattled. And I think
we've also never seen Khabib fight with high stakes.
Right.
Like when he fought Al Iaquinta, that wasn't high stakes. Al's an amazing fighter, but that's not the same as fighting Conor McGregor.
Right.
When he's fighting Edson Barboza, that's not high stakes. When you're fighting Conor McGregor, Conor takes all the chips on that poker table, puts it all in the middle, goes, I'm all in. You have to be all in. I do well under these circumstances. How do you respond?
Now, the stare down was Khabib and Conor both doing what they do best. Conor chirped Khabib, and Khabib stayed cool, calm, and collected. Yes, there was a slight sway from Khabib as Conor invaded his space, which was a fairly normal reaction to someone getting that close, but Khabib ultimately held his ground and made comfortable eye contact the whole time.
The man was a fanboy. He bought t-shirts of mine. He fucking supported the cause. You remember that? You little fanboy. Over on his neck of the woods, a man involved in something who's now in prison. But Vladimir Putin locked him up for embezzling 150 million worth of money from the Russian people. Started to invest and pump money into his gym. So he started to grow in power. He's a glass jaw. The Chechens, my Chechen friends, the Vainaki soldiers, they told me that they have chicken jaws in Dagestan. And I believe them because I know a glass jaw when I see one. And I've seen this man wobble many times. I've seen his brother sparked unconscious in another promotion. I know he is afraid of a smack. When I call this man a coward, when I call this father a quivering coward.
Which Chechen?
But you actually fight like a little shitty jokes rat. Anyway, you dive for the legs and hold on to them for dear life. What kind of fighting is that? What kind of man, what kind of way of fighting is that?
Topic that seemed to get Khabib genuinely heated was when Conor insulted his past behavior, specifically how Khabib handled the confrontation with Artem Lobov.
Me going over and seeing an Irish man going about his work, and you going over and seeing an Irish man over in England, let's say, and me with, yeah, what are you talking about with numbers?
Okay.
You were surrounded by about 40 of your teammates, many of them hooded, many of them had the hoods up, they had to be chased out of the hotel.
You can ask him. Why you don't ask him?
Right, mate.
Okay, why you don't ask him?
Now, if Conor had a longer press tour, I think you would see him continue to harp on this point, insulting the way that Khabib handled the Artem situation, calling him a coward for costing Artem in a long group, telling him that he didn't handle his business like a man, which seems to be something that Khabib really values. But this press conference was only 30 minutes, and once they navigated away from that point, Khabib was much more able to maintain his composure.
And so before we get into this weigh-in video, and what I'll do is I'll show the entire video, and then I'll focus in on the individual short interview clips that both Khabib and Conor gave to Joe Rogan. And so as we watch the weigh-in, what you'll notice is how Conor plays to the crowd, you know, in true Conor fashion. All that Irish bravado, strips down to his briefs, beats his chest, flexes, and lets out that primal scream, that animalistic scream, which we know is again part of that psychological warfare. He's trying to intimidate his opponent, even though he's not in front of his opponent, not looking at his opponent's still in the back. It's all ploy to get inside the head of his opponent and to pump himself up. Because, you know, truth be told, man, I think in a lot of cases, Conor has to psych himself up for these fights, you know, even if we're just talking about interest or confidence. Because, you know, fighters have a bit of insecurity in them, man. I mean, as confident as they may appear to be or say that they are, you know, there's always an uncertainty when you go into combat with somebody. You may have watched a whole bunch of footage, tape, you may have seen them in person, you may have even sparred with them. But when it's all on the line and you got to step inside that octagon or that ring or whatever the platform is, and it's just mano a mano, there are a bit of nerves that come into the picture, man. Believe it. Believe it. There's no way to get around that, no matter how macho you are. So, again, everything is for the show, man. So you look at his eyes, how crazy they are. He almost looks like he's possessed. And again, if you don't believe in demons or possession, if you keep rocking with me, I'll make you a believer. Believe that. So, back to the video. You can see him strut around in a circle. Very territorial. He's marking his territory. You know, he's setting the stage to let everybody there know that he is the man. He is the alpha in the dynamic. and that he intends to have his way with Khabib, both mentally and physically. And then you see how Khabib comes out, very focused, very deliberate. He is dead set on completing the actual task, getting on the scale, getting weighed, getting the approval, the thumbs up, and then getting on with his day. You know, he doesn't take off anything. He even has his popka on. So again, he's all about his business, bro. Very little interaction with the crowd. You know, he just said, you know, in the words of the great philosopher Marshawn Lynch, I'm about that action, boss. As simple as that. He's just there so he won't get fined. Basically. So, you know, then we move on to the face-to-face, or I guess what you call a face-off, that Dana White gets in the middle of. You know, he can barely contain his giddiness as he just counts the money in his head like people count sheep when they have trouble sleeping. You know, what I could tell is, and I've read other reviews, seen other videos, and you get a mixed critique on whether or not Khabib was rattled or whatever. But what I see, based on what I know about Khabib, is that due to his anger management issues, or his anger issues, what he was trying to do was to maintain his composure and not put the pause on Conor prematurely to jeopardize that bag. Because, you know, as much of a man of discipline as he is, he understands that he's about to get paid, he's about to get broke off. And then getting back to the principle of it, he doesn't want anything to interfere with the sanctioned fight, because he takes this craft very seriously. And so, you know, he wasn't about any kind of show. You know, he left that to P.T. Barnum in the flesh, reincarnated 2.0, whatever you want to call him. But that's what I call Conor McGregor, man. He you know, and I guess you would probably call Dana White P.T. Barnum more accurately, but they're both in a sense confidence men, or shorten the con men. You know, they understand salesmanship, they understand the importance of exaggeration and embellishment, and they don't care about the landmines they leave behind. You know how when you go to you meaning, you know, the U.S. Military goes to a foreign land and they have these IEDs, and sometimes they're just left behind, and, you know, innocent bystanders, you know, are caught in them and they die as a result. That's kind of how, you know, a con man is. They lay all the booby traps, you know, trying to catch you, and for those booby traps that aren't needed, aren't used, they don't go back and pick them up. They leave them there. And so, again, man, both of these cats know what time it is. Alright, so on to the interviews. We'll start with Conor's. So you'll notice how Conor doesn't answer Joe's question until after he insults Khabib's hat, his papaka hat. Just so you know, Joe has worn that hat during past interviews with Khabib, and that's basically where Conor's insult comes from. And so what I'll do in the Patreon video is I'll give a brief etymology of the hat. It's pretty interesting, but I just think that that's very illustrative of the level of disrespect and disregard that Conor has for somebody's culture. And what you understand is, you know, culture is supremely important to a proud people, and I would consider Khabib to be proud. And most people that have a strong culture are proud. You know, it's just that in America we're so confused, man. We're so misled. We're so...
Oh, I say it again. You've been had. You've been took. You've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok. This is what he does.
And so, you know, Brother Denzel, Brother Malcolm, told us that we've been bamboozled, we've been hoodwinked, you know, into believing that, you know, hip hop is our culture, our meaning so-called black people, but basically it's American culture. You know, it's American enterprise, American commerce, you know, it's a product, so it's American, it's not black. But anyway, that's a different story. The point is this: if you have a strong culture that's based on, you know, a lineage that can be traced back, you know, we're talking about heritage, roots, that kind of thing, then man, you know, you want to tread lightly when you think about offending somebody or making a disparaging comment, because it's not just surface. It's deeper than that. We talking about blood. We talking about legacy. We're talking about pain and struggle and all kinds of emotions that are wrapped up in somebody's history. So, you know, for somebody to totally disregard that, either they do that willfully or ignorantly. In Conor's case, I'm gonna say it's willful. I'm gonna say he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows how to use language and gestures and body language. He's masterful with it. So he know what time it is. And again, we know in hindsight what happened. But moving forward, let's get let's wrap up Conor's interview. So basically, he insults Khabib some more, and then he says what? The king is home. So he's again marking his territory, staking his claim, and oh, by the way, boosting himself up. I have no doubt about that. No doubt. You know, it's mental for him as well. Alright, so moving on to Khabib's interview, we notice how humble and grateful he is, both to his God Allah, as well as the legion of Conor fanboys and girls, namely the Irish ones. So, you know, to me, he seems unrattled by the spectacle that is Conor McGregor. And in his own words, he's ready to smash your boy Conor. I'm going to smash your boy. Oh man, I love this dude, man. I think we would get along in real life, straight up. But you can see here two very different, distinct archetypes, which will break down even further as we move forward. And so, speaking of that, let's get to the next clip.
Welcome back. What does it feel like to be back? And what does this fight mean to you?
Don't let that smelly rat put that hat on your head, Joe. The smell of that thing. Don't ever let him put that hat on your head. It's good to be back. UFC fans, it's good to be back. The king is home.
I'm here with the champion, ladies and gentlemen. Khabib, what does this fight mean to you to defend your title tomorrow night against Conor McGregor?
Hey,
First of all, I want to say Alhamdulillah, God gave me everything. Alhamdulillah. I know you got this, don't like this. Alhamdulillah. Tomorrow night, I'm gonna smash your boy, guys. I'm gonna smash your boy. And I want to say thank you, all Irish fans, you know, all fans around the world. Because of you guys, this fight is happening. Thank you guys, and tomorrow night, inshallah, and still.